CEO wife poured cooking oil on the nanny while she tried to prepare the dish her husband loved, even more than hers. It happened so fast that the entire kitchen froze. The sizzling pot on the stove hissed. The bright city lights from the window reflected against the stainless appliances, and 26-year-old Lena Brooks stood trembling, her hands still on the wooden spoon. "Don't you ever touch that recipe again!" Victoria Hayes, the CEO's wife, snapped. Her voice was calm, but every word carried sharpness. Hot oil soaked Lena's sleeve and dripped onto the floor. She bit back tears, refusing to cry even though the sting burned through the thin cotton fabric. Across the room, the housekeeper, Maribel, watched in horror but didn't dare step in. Everyone knew Victoria's temper. Everyone also knew she hated that her husband, well-respected tech CEO Daniel Hayes, praised Lena's cooking more than her own. But today felt different. The anger in Victoria's voice wasn't just jealousy. It was fear, insecurity, something deeper. Lena bowed her head. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean—" "I don't care what you meant," Victoria shot back. "Just stay out of my kitchen." Silence followed, heavy, painful, and unforgettable. Lena spent the evening alone in her small room tucked at the far end of the penthouse, her arm wrapped in a cool cloth. The pain had settled into a slow throb, but it was nothing compared to the knot tightening in her chest. She had worked in many homes, but none had ever felt discomplicated. A soft knock came at the door. "Lena, it's me," Daniel said quietly. Her breath caught. The CEO rarely came to the staff quarters. She opened the door halfway and saw him standing there in a crisp shirt, sleeves rolled up, looking nothing like the powerful executive the public saw every day. "I heard what happened," Daniel said, his voice low. "Are you hurt?" "I'll be all right," she whispered, trying to hide her arm. Daniel stepped inside, guilt written across his face. "You shouldn't have been treated that way. I'm sorry." The apology was soft but heavy. Daniel wasn't a man who apologized easily. "Please don't blame yourself," Lena murmured. "I didn't want to cause trouble." He shook his head. "You didn't. This house, it's been tense lately." There was more behind his words, something he wasn't ready to say, something Lena wasn't ready to hear. The next morning, the penthouse felt colder than usual. The skyline glowed through the tall windows, but Victoria's tension filled the rooms more heavily than the dawn air. She sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through her phone, her jaw tight. She didn't look up when Lena entered to prepare breakfast. Maribel whispered, "Be careful today. She didn't sleep at all." Before Lena could respond, the door to the home office creaked open. Daniel stepped out, tie undone, eyes tired. He looked like a man carrying a weight far heavier than the empire he managed. "Victoria, we need to talk," he said. She kept scrolling. "I have nothing to say." Daniel exhaled, long and tired. "We can't keep living like this." At that, Victoria's gaze finally lifted, sharp, cold, wounded. "Oh, really? Now you care about how we live? Or is this about your little kitchen friend again?" Lena froze. "Stop," Daniel said firmly. "This isn't about her." Victoria laughed bitterly. "It's always about her, Daniel. You compliment her cooking, you defend her, you see her more than you see me." For a moment, the kitchen felt too small for the three of them. Then Victoria whispered, "You don't love me anymore, do you?" Her voice trembled. Daniel froze when Victoria's voice cracked. For the first time, Lena saw not an angry wife, but a woman terrified of losing everything. He stepped closer, but Victoria pushed her chair back and stood, trembling. "You don't love me anymore," she repeated, her voice rising. "Just say it, Daniel." "That's not true," he said gently. "But we're not communicating. We're hurting each other. We need help." "Help," she scoffed. "You want therapy now, after years of ignoring me? After praising the nanny more than your own wife?" Lena looked down, wishing she could disappear. He sighed. "This isn't about Lena." "Stop saying her name," Victoria exploded.
and then in a flash, she stormed toward Lena. Daniel moved instantly, stepping in between them. Victoria's palm struck his chest instead of Lena's face. Everyone froze. Victoria gasped at what she had done, her hand hovering in the air. Daniel didn't flinch. He only looked at her with a sadness deeper than anger. "I'm done fighting," he murmured, "but I won't let you hurt her." The words shattered something in Victoria. She staggered back, tears flooding her eyes before she rushed out of the kitchen, heels echoing down the hallway. Lena whispered, "Sir, maybe I should leave." Daniel shook his head. "Not now, please." Late that afternoon, the penthouse finally quieted. Victoria had locked herself in the guest room, refusing to speak to anyone. Daniel had left for an urgent board meeting. Only Ethan, their 8-year-old son, padded softly down the hallway holding his stuffed dinosaur. He found Lena in the laundry room folding towels. "Auntie Lena?" he whispered. "Yes, sweetheart?" She knelt. "Mom was crying again." Lena sighed softly. "She's having a hard day. She loves you very much." He nodded, but his expression didn't brighten. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folded note. "I wrote something. It's for Mom, but I'm scared to give it to her. Can you read it first?" Lena opened the crooked paper, her heart tightening at the shaky handwriting. "Mom, please don't be mad anymore. I miss when we laughed. I don't like when you yell. I want us to be happy like before. I love you, Ethan." Lena swallowed hard. "This is beautiful," she whispered. "Your mom needs this, Ethan. She really does." "But will she listen?" he asked quietly. Before Lena could answer, Victoria appeared silently at the doorway, eyes swollen, face pale. "I heard everything," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper.
Victoria stood in the doorway, her hand gripping the frame as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. Ethan froze, clutching his dinosaur tighter. Lena rose slowly, unsure what to expect. Victoria's eyes were fixed on her son. "You wrote that for me?" Ethan nodded hesitantly. For a long moment, Victoria didn't move. Her chin trembled, but she forced out a soft plea. "Come here, baby." Ethan ran into her arms, and the moment he touched her, something inside Victoria shattered. She sank to her knees, holding him so tightly he squeaked. "I'm so sorry," she whispered into Ethan's hair. "I'm sorry for yelling. I'm sorry for everything. Mommy hasn't been okay." Ethan squeezed her neck. "I just want you to be happy." Victoria's tears ran down her cheeks, quiet but steady. Then she lifted her eyes to Lena, eyes full of shame, regret, and something Lena hadn't seen before. Honesty. "I shouldn't have hurt you," Victoria said softly. "None of this was your fault. I lost control, and I'm sorry." Lena's throat tightened. She had waited for anger, but not this. Victoria looked exhausted, vulnerable, almost fragile. "I don't know how to fix my marriage, but I don't want to lose my family." That evening, Daniel returned home long after sunset. The penthouse was unusually quiet. No shouting, no slammed doors, just a stillness that felt fragile. He loosened his tie, stepped into the living room, and paused when he saw Victoria sitting alone on the couch. Her eyes were tired but calm. "We need to talk," she said softly. Daniel nodded, expecting another argument. But then he saw it, the crumpled note Ethan had written resting on her lap. His shoulders sank. "I shouldn't have let things get this bad. I pushed you away. I pushed everyone away." Daniel sat across from her. "We both made mistakes." Victoria hesitated, then spoke in a trembling voice. "I know why you defend Lena, and it's not what I thought." She looked down at her hands. "You defend her because she's the only one in this house who's not afraid of breaking."
Daniel blinked, surprised. You're hurting too, Daniel. You've been carrying everything. The company, the stress, me, and you don't talk about it. He swallowed hard. I didn't want to burden you. Victoria shook her head. We already are burdened, just not together. For the first time in months, Daniel didn't argue. He just listened. Later that night, the storm everyone had avoided finally broke. Not with shouting, but with quiet truths. Daniel and Victoria sat at the dining table, a space usually filled with business calls and rushed meals, now carrying only the weight of their silence. Victoria stared at her intertwined fingers. Do you know when I started resenting you? She asked. Daniel shook his head gently. When I realized I didn't recognize myself anymore. I built my whole life around being your wife, and when the company took off, I felt left behind, invisible. Her voice cracked. And then Lena came along, young, hardworking, sweet with Ethan, everything I used to be. Daniel reached across the table, resting his hand near hers, but not forcing a touch. I never wanted you to feel replaced. Victoria lifted her eyes, glossy with tears. But I did. I still do. And that's why I snapped. Not because of her cooking, but because I felt like I was disappearing. Daniel exhaled slowly. You're not disappearing. You're the reason any of this exists. For the first time in a long while, Victoria believed him, just a little, enough to let her tear roll freely down her cheek. I don't want our son growing up in a house full of fear, she whispered. Daniel finally took her hand. You're right. We fix this together. The next morning, sunlight poured softly across the penthouse, touching every room with a gentleness that hadn't been felt in months. Lena arose early, expecting tension, expecting silence, but instead she found Victoria already in the kitchen, hair tied up, sleeves rolled, staring at the skillet with a nervous expression. When Victoria noticed, she straightened quickly. Lena, I was trying to make Daniel's favorite dish. Lena hesitated. Would you like help? For a moment, Victoria's pride flickered, then melted. She nodded. Yes, I think I need it. They stood side by side, the awkwardness slowly softening between them. Lena guided her through the simple steps, and Victoria followed carefully, never once snapping or criticizing. At one point, the spatula slipped from Victoria's hand, and instead of boiling over, she laughed. Quietly, unsurely, but honestly. That's the first time I've heard you laugh in a while, Daniel said from the doorway. Victoria turned, startled. Daniel smiled gently, then glanced at Lena with gratitude rather than guilt. Breakfast looks good, he said. It's a team effort, Victoria replied, glancing meaningfully at Lena. For the first time, Lena saw something she hadn't expected in Victoria's eyes. Not anger, not jealousy, but the beginnings of trust. And that meant healing had finally begun. 3 days later, the Hayes family gathered in the living room. No shouting, no tension, just a quiet calm that felt new and fragile. Lena sat on the edge of the sofa, unsure why Daniel had asked her to join. Victoria was beside Ethan, her hand gently resting on his back. Daniel stood before them, taking a slow breath. I've made a decision, he began. For a moment, Lena feared she was being let go, but Daniel shook his head, reading her worry instantly. No, Lena, you're not losing your job. You're part of this home, and after everything we put you through, the least we can do is make sure you're treated with the respect you deserve. Victoria nodded. I agree, and I want to say this clearly. I've been unfair to you. You stepped into this home to help us, not replace us. Her voice softened. Thank you for staying even when I didn't deserve it. Lena felt her eyes sting. I stayed because this family needs healing. And healing doesn't happen when someone runs away. Ethan climbed onto her lap, hugging her tightly. I'm happy you're here, he whispered. Daniel looked at his wife. She looked back. And for the first time in a long time, they both smiled. Together. The house wasn't perfect. It wasn't magically fixed. But it was finally on its way. A beginning, not an ending. And everyone could feel it.